Hello, this is Colonial Puppet, and in this video we're going to be dissecting a Macintosh PowerBook 3400c. Alright, enough of the promotional video. Alright, that's better. And as you can see, there are two PowerBooks on the workbench. One has already been partially dissected. And that is because my main goal of this video is to take these two PowerBooks and make one working PowerBook in the best cosmetic condition possible. And believe it or not, this one is actually in better cosmetic condition of the two. However, it unfortunately also does not work currently. And not just because I ripped it apart. I tried turning it on, but unfortunately nothing appeared on the screen. And while I did hear it start up, it was making this high-pitched, high-voltage noise. And after a few seconds of that, an alarm started to sound inside the computer, which probably means there was some sort of failure with the hard drive. On the other hand, this computer works just fine for the most part. However, there are some issues with it. Cosmetically, it's in pretty poor condition with some damage and cracks and scuffs to the case plastic. The keyboard and trackpad are noticeably worn down. The clicking part of the trackpad doesn't seem to work, and the two buttons that are meant to eject the PCMCIA cards also don't seem to work, and it's missing its ADB port door. In other words, this computer is going to be the main focus of this video. I'm going to tear it down, take out the good bits, and put those good bits in the computer that is broken but otherwise in better cosmetic condition. So let's get started. Starting with the cosmetically in bad shape but working laptop, the first step's to flip it over on its back. Then I remove the battery as well as the hot swappable CD drive. Then I remove these 3 Torx screws from the bottom of the computer. Then I flip the computer back over and open the lid to get to the keyboard. Then I use this pry tool to lift up the keyboard and flip it over like so. I have to disconnect these 2 ribbon cables before I can remove the keyboard, so first I use this pry tool to lift up on the 2 tabs on either side of each of the ribbon connectors. And then once the connectors are lifted up, I can just pull out the ribbon cables. Next, I'm going to gently pull up right here to remove the RAM module. Then I'm going to disconnect this speaker cable. Then I remove this single Torx screw by the left speaker. Then I disconnect this single ribbon cable. And once that's removed, this whole speaker assembly should be able to pull right out. Next, I have to remove the side plastic. I start by gently folding back the screen as far as it'll go, and then there's no screws holding the plastic in, so I just have to be very gentle as I lift it out. This plastic is very old and therefore extremely brittle. It was at this point that I realized why the 2 PCMCIA ejection buttons weren't working. As you can see, the buttons themselves broke off of the main logic board and were just lying in the case. Next, I remove this ribbon cable that is down by where the RAM module connected to the board. Next, we have to remove this whole front trackpad assembly, and this is a step that a lot of people seem to have trouble with. And that's because this whole piece is held in by plastic snaps. And particularly, there's one big snap right here that is very hard to undo. And in all of the disassembly videos and documentation I've seen, the consensus is that you just kind of have to brute force this piece out, which is kind of scary considering how old and brittle this plastic is. However, I did find a method that is a lot easier and is a lot less dangerous to the plastic. This method involves taking a flathead screwdriver and kind of shoving it in this particular area within the battery bay, and then if you gently torque the flathead screwdriver, the plastic snap that seems to give people the most trouble just pops right out. Then you just use your 2 thumbs to push inward on the bottom half of the computer and then pull the entire part towards you and it should come right out. Next, I remove these 3 Torx screws near the edge of the computer. Then I slowly rotate this hard drive caddy out towards me, making sure not to rip the ribbon cable. Then I just pull up on it to disconnect it. Then I lift up on this daughter board to remove it, and then I disconnect that speaker cable from it as well. So these are the 3 pieces that I'm going to be harvesting from this computer. I'll be taking the RAM board, the power supply board, and the entire hard drive caddy. And while I could further disassemble the hard drive assembly and remove the hard drive from the caddy, I unfortunately do not have the right sized torque driver to remove it, and I don't want to strip the screws, so I'm just going to leave it in place. So now it's time to grab the PowerBook that was in better cosmetic condition and put these new parts inside it. Alright, and with all the reassembly done, I'm just going to give it a quick clean with some isopropyl alcohol. And with that, we have a pretty nice example of a PowerBook 3400c. It's in good working order, and cosmetically it looks almost brand new. It also has this relatively rare aftermarket VST zip drive rather than the floppy or CD drive that these came with from the factory. Overall, I'm pretty happy with how this computer turned out, and as for the second PowerBook, believe it or not, I was actually able to get it to work, although I'm not sure how long the fix I performed will last. What I did was I opened the hard drive that wasn't working, and I kind of manually spun the platters inside of it. I did this because I had a hunch that the platters just became stuck over time, and that the hard drive being unable to spin up was putting stress on the electrical components of the laptop, which would have explained the high-pitched, high-voltage noise I was talking about earlier. Unfortunately, the 2 buttons for the PCM-CIA slots still don't work, though I could solder them in the future, but that would still leave the clicker for the trackpad not working. For this video clip, I just plugged in an ADB mouse, and while I was careful opening up the hard drive to make sure that there was no dust or debris getting on the platters, the truth is I didn't do this fix in a clean room, so who knows how long this hard drive is going to last now. But the way I see it, the hard drive had already failed, and I was just happy to get it working, if not for just a little bit. I'm just happy that I have one good example of a PowerBook 3400, and at least for now, a backup. But anyway, I hope you found this video helpful or at least entertaining, and as always, have a nice day.